Oh man, I wish this discussion could go on forever.
Ignore the bell. We're gonna keep going, people.
Hello, and welcome to an Ignore the Bell review podcast where we are reviewing Black Mirror Bandersnatch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Nathan.
I'm Tyler.
So Bandersnatch. You're going to do a timer on this?
Yeah. Here's just 1 second. All right. So again, we're going to go for about 30 minutes. I think that's going to be like the standard for these reviews.
Yeah.
But yeah. So let's
and we
get
have a
into
sponsor,
it.
right? Before we get into
yes, we do have a sponsor for this week's episode, which is the number 9. Since that's the number of dollars I have left in one of my bank accounts. So
the number of dollars you have left, or the number of dollars that you have now saved? Let's be glass half full on this.
Right. Yes. Optimism.
Yeah. Rolling in it.
Yeah. Okay. Here, 1 second. All right. Cool. So timer is going. So yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. Yeah. So Black Mirror Bandersnatch. I know that it is really not relevant to begin with this, but every time I hear it, then all that I can think about is Crash Bandicoot, right? Bandersnatch power. Ooga ooga.
Yeah. I want to say that Bandersnatch is a character from Alice in Wonderland.
That's my understanding. And
yeah. But it's and I also heard on another podcast, Slash Film Daily. Those guys do movie news if you guys are interested in that. But with them, then they were mentioning that Bandersnatch was the name of a video game that was being developed in the 1980s that never ended up being finished, and nobody really knows much about it. So this doesn't seem to be like really related to that, but it is just a cool idea. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know who wants to go first, but I guess I'll just jump right in. So, you and I have talked a little bit about Black Mirror off camera before, and I think you've seen all of the episodes of Black Mirror. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've seen about half of them. And I love science fiction. I love anthology series. And it's kind of like an updated version of the Twilight Zone, but it's really specifically focused on technology and the kind of the dystopian side of it, right?
Yeah.
I think, and how it can really, how we can kind of become prisoners to technology, that every time you get a new piece of technology, it brings all of these benefits, but it also brings all of these unintended consequences, and often they're pretty terrible. Like, would you say that's a pretty fair overview of Black Mirror?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. It is very much, kind of Twilight Zone with sci-fi elements in just about every single episode. I can't think of one that doesn't have some element of that, but
right.
Yeah. If you're gonna get into the series, by the way, just skip over the first episode. You can come back to it later if you want, but that one is just awful.
It's so awful. Yeah. And so and just in case anybody has not done a whole bunch of research, or even like very limited research on Black Mirror, the idea is that like all of our pieces of technology, these are all black mirrors that we have. Like a cell phone is a black mirror, and computer screens are black mirrors, and TV screens and all of that stuff. All these screens that we are surrounded by are black mirrors, and it's like this idea of, it's a mirror, but it's like really dark what it's ultimately reflecting, because it often reflects the worst of us. And this is my, like, if we're just focusing in on Bandersnatch, then the reason why I bring up what Black Mirror is really about is because I think that most of the episodes I've seen, I would say almost all of them are overlong. I've tweeted about this before, that the writers come up with these great concepts, and then it's like I get it, and I feel like most viewers understand the concept way before the end of the episode. It's just
Yeah.
like we understand the theme or the concept that you're trying to get across, and then it just keeps going and going and going, and you're just like, I get it. I'm not a moron. I understand what you're saying. Why did you have to do like 60 plus minutes on it?
Yeah, I agree. There are quite a few episodes that do have that issue of just being over long. But there are some that use that time really well. And
Yeah.
I think we talked about this before. Like the Twilight Zone had some of that as well, where some episodes were like they weren't too long, but they just went on too long, if that
Well,
makes sense.
because and I mean I haven't seen every single Twilight Zone episode, but I've seen probably, I don't know, I'd say 70% of the original series. I mean, this is back in the 60s when television series, like a season was 40 something episodes long. I'm not kidding.
Right. Yeah.
Like just massive how long each season is. And so one of the seasons, I think it was the last season that it was on air, it went from a 30-minute runtime to a 60-minute runtime. And those are the episodes that most critics say, you know, they're not the best ones. And is it that they're not the best episodes because Rod Serling, the creator of the show, and he wrote the bulk of the episodes, then did he just kind of run out of steam and he used his best ideas in the first few seasons? Or is it that once you get into a 60-minute runtime for this particular type of anthology series where it's, dealing with some dark themes and with that sci-fi element, and there's usually an ironic twist to it, that those stories usually don't work as well once they get a little long? Or is it
Right.
that they just use the best ideas early on? I mean, in any case, I think that's what, like, Black Mirror is very much in the spirit of that, and that's where I'm at with Bandersnatch. Bandersnatch is it's a very interesting concept,
Mhm.
and then it keeps going, and you're like I kept trying different versions of it, right?
Yeah.
Because it is like, and I'm assuming anybody who's watching this has actually like gone through and watched Bandersnatch, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah. It just a quick explanation of what it is. It's a choose your own adventure movie, similar to the old choose your own adventure books that people would read. I mean, people still read them,
right.
but yeah. So there are different pathways that you can take in the movie to have different storylines, sort of be more prominent. Um, but yeah, there. So go on with what you were saying then about it
Well, I
being.
mean, I kept trying to see if to see if there was something that I was missing. So I kept trying different versions. And then I'm just like, okay, I feel like I really understand what you're trying to get me to understand. And I can get into that, but I kind of, before I do, I want to hear what you think. Because that's my overall, like, I don't know, takeaway from it. It's that interesting concept. Um, I don't the I think it's too much of not that big of an idea.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So when I was watching it or playing it or whatever you want to say for this,
That's a good point.
experiencing it,
Hmm.
then
Interacting with it, because they call it an
right.
interactive experience, because they can't call it a choose your own adventure because that's trademarked, I'm assuming,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
right? Because that's an actual series, and so
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so it's so when I was going through, I did sort of with the first choice that you get to make, sugar puffs or frosties or frosted flakes or whatever they are.
Frosties is what they called them, but they were Frosted Flakes, so I don't
Right.
understand.
Maybe they have a different name in England.
That's what I'm thinking,
Yeah.
because it had Tony
Anyway,
the Tiger.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went with Frosties just
Hey,
because
me
that's the
too.
one that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, me too.
Um, um, and then the next choice, and it's okay, are you gonna sign on with the big company or are you going to say no to them? And I said, yeah, because why
Same
not?
here,
Like,
because of
it makes
course.
sense.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to say no. The character
Oh,
looks excited, so it seems like that's what he should be saying.
yes.
Um, and then Colin, the other character, says like, "Oh, you made the wrong choice."
Yeah.
And then we get that's when you really get the sense that like, oh, okay, this is what happens when you make a poor choice. You get shown a review of the game that the main character was working on, and with that ending, it's like, oh, well, it's not finished. You know, this is really, really early on, clearly didn't have a lot of time, felt like it was kind of done by committee and everything. Um, and the main character, Stefan, says like, I'm gonna try again. And
Hmm.
that's telling us, okay, yeah, you can try again now. And then you get to go back and try again, which is an interesting concept. This time, when you say no, then you're like, wait, there's something different going on here. Like Colin is responding in different ways, and you're just kind of like, okay, so it's playing with the idea that it is an interactive experience, a choose your own experience, and I really like that aspect of it. When you go further down the rabbit hole with Colin, then you get more explanations about multiple timelines, stuff like that. Which I mean, like the whole drug trip thing, I was like, I don't really care. um, but it was really, really interesting to have them play with that idea because I went into this really nervous about whether it was going to feel gimmicky,
Mm.
um, and I liked that they incorporated the interactive experience into the story
Hmm.
of this experience. Um, and yeah, it was interesting to see Stefan like, struggling with like I'm not in control, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and it was fun to go back and try other options. My issue is that when I got to the first ending, then like or my first proper ending, which is like when it tells you, okay, you can go to the credits now.
Hmm.
So when I first got to that one, then I went back and did a different ending, but it was very close to the first ending, and that's what I was kind of upset with. I was like, oh, well, I wanted to go back further and change some
Mm.
of the earlier choices that I got to
Right.
make,
Right.
which I wasn't able to do without restarting the whole experience.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's like, those are like some minor criticisms there. Overall, I thought that it was really, really cool how again, like how they implemented like or brought that the choose your own adventure nature of it into the story, and I like that. I don't think that every story would work well in that interactive form.
Right. Yeah. Yes, I agree. And I mean, I think there's a lot. I have a lot to say about that. So
Sorry, I went on for a while there.
no, 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 that's okay. Because so because my own educational background is primarily within the field of English, within literature and
Hmm.
studying literary texts, then this is one of the most fundamental principles that you have to understand, like one of the most important concepts within the study of literature is the relationship between form and content.
Hmm.
Okay. And so basically, what the story is about. So this is going to be the actual content, right? So the
Yeah.
plot. And then the other thing is how it is told, right?
Right.
And so the way you tell the story, so that's the form, the structure that you're using. And you can look at a whole bunch of different stories, a bunch of different narratives, and then examine that relationship between form and content. And is this the best form for telling this particular kind of story? Right.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so this is I mean, it's a really big thing, and it would take me a while to really get into the complexity of the relationship between form and content. But this does such a good job of it. This is like a very, very good example of a story where you have the actual content, the plot of this, and the themes and the characters and all of that that really needs to be told in this particular form, in this kind of storytelling. So it's like it does a great job of that, where as a Black Mirror episode, if you're going to turn one of them into a choose your own adventure or an interactive experience, then this is of course the one to do it with. And they came up with this idea intentionally for the interactive format, right?
Right. Yeah.
But then this is where I kind of grow weary of Black Mirror, where I just feel like it's too much, because it's like you get like a good, I don't even know if it's 2 minutes, but probably 60 seconds to 2 minutes, where is Colin the name of the programmer, like the guy with the glasses and the blonde hair?
Yeah.
Okay. When he goes on his like, mini rant, like, is it just after they took acid, or is it just okay?
It seems to be. I mean, yeah, he does like a little bit of an explanation beforehand, but the majority of it is, like his full like rant is after. Yeah.
Right. And so he has this really, those are the strongest 2 minutes of the entire thing. When he goes off on Pac-Man, like, that's brilliant. That is so, so, so well done. It is so insightful. And you're like watching, and it's like, and he's just spitting it out like at a fireball rate of just how fast those things are coming. And you're like, wow, if you do take the concept of Pac-Man, which is like peak 1980s, arcade video gaming, right? If you take that and then you say Pac-Man is a metaphor for late capitalism, for the 1980s, and onwards, where it's just the illusion of choice, the illusion of having control, but ultimately all that you're doing is you are just being taught to, like, you're being forced by these walls to consume, 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 and every time you think that you have somehow escaped, it just spits you out the other side. And so you think that you're able to get out of it, but ultimately you are boxed in and your behavior is being controlled. And that's what makes Pac-Man a horror story, and very much an allegory or a metaphor, right? Just an allegory is an extended metaphor for our condition in, like, he doesn't use the term, but in late capitalism, in what you really see from like the rise of big banks, big finance in the 1980s, all the way into today, right? And so this is like kind of where you have this shift, where that's where the wealth really is, and it's really like bankers who are controlling us through, all of these different means and big corporations. So those are the best 2 minutes, and then it's like that's the point of it, is that we're going to give you this interactive experience, except not. So you're going to think that you've got a whole bunch of choice, but ultimately you have very few choices, and that ultimately you can't really break out of this. And then you're just like, oh, I get it. So my own experience is very much like what Stefan's experience is within this story, that he's doing this game where he is trying to give people he's trying to give them lots of choices, and that breaks down. So then he's like, I have to ultimately give them fewer choices, right? Give them the illusion of choice. And that's the only way that this whole thing works. And that's like this whole thing for the world. And then we are supposed to look at this and be like, oh, so we have very few choices, and that we're participating in this and we're complicit in this as we watch it. And then like it gets very meta. I don't know if you got to like the parts where it's like he tries to fight with his psychologist, and then you see like the Netflix crew around there.
Like
right.
with like with the computer screen, and you're able to say like, just give me a sign, and then you select Netflix, and then it goes off into that whole brawl with the psychologist.
Right. Exactly.
I really, really enjoyed that, but that was actually the last thing that I saw before like that was the last option that I got to before like I just stopped interacting with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, and so this is where I feel like this is my issue kind of with Black Mirror in general, and then I have issues with this endeavor of turning it into an interactive experience. And so my issue with Black Mirror is, okay, I get it. I get it. Like you've got a great concept, and then you've kind of explored it, and you've done this really cool thing between form and content. But ultimately, once you realize that they're forcing you into different choices, it's like the amount of times that I said, I don't want to talk about my mom, right? I kept
Yeah.
choosing that. I'm like, I am not interested. I really don't care about, like, let's talk about mom. No, thank you. And they force you into it. And this whole thing of like, I don't want to kill my dad, but it forces you into killing him, right?
Yep.
That it's like, so then you're just like, oh, so it's not really an interactive experience. And then it's like, it's supposed to be this horror that we're supposed to look around and go, oh no, I thought that I had all this control in my own life, but it turns out that I'm being controlled by forces beyond my own control. And those forces are like big corporations and capitalism and all of this stuff. And how do I escape? And I can't possibly escape. And then I'm like, yeah, like cultural critics have been talking about this concept for decades. And I guess if this is your first time hearing about it, then it's going to blow your mind. But if you've studied this even a little, then you're just like, yeah, that's a pretty shallow explanation for it. It's true, it's insightful, and it really gets to the point. Like I say, those 2 minutes where he goes off on Pac-Man are really pointed and they're well said. But then you're just like, but that's all you're saying? That we feel like we have control, but we really don't have control? Then I'm like, I didn't need 2 hours or so to get that message.
Right. Yeah. So I'm really interested in some of the different endings that you got, or some of the different choices that you were offered. I know with one of them, then you get to enter a code into a safe, which then, for me, I input the code PAC, so PAC. But that's apparently not the only one that you can enter there.
Right.
You can also enter, I forget what it is, like the name of the
Packs.
rabbit.
Um,
Yeah, no, but if you do like other stuff beforehand, then you're able to enter like the name of the stuffed rabbit or whatever that he had.
okay.
Which then uh inside the safe, then you find the rabbit, which causes Stefan to like realize that his dad had like held on to it and he was really responsible for his mom's death or whatever.
Yeah.
So it that is interesting in the idea that, like, based on your previous choices, that determines what choices you have later on, to some degree.
Right.
So there is still variety to be had. In terms of messaging, I agree that, yeah, like it tells you that one message, and then that's about all that it has to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the different endings I thought were interesting. Stefan's journey of struggling against us, the viewer, was compelling enough for me. I'm not sure if you got the choice when like they go out, when Colin and Stefan like go out to the balcony,
Mm-hmm.
and then Colin is like, one of us is going over.
Mm-hmm.
Did you try both of those different
Yep.
options?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So it was kind of cool to see, um, like with the I again, like it is hard to figure out like all the branching paths and for me to keep them straight as to
Right.
what
Have
led
you
to
have you not
what.
seen that there are some charts out there already? Like
Oh, I haven't
immediately.
seen them yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, on
Okay.
Twitter, then there are some charts like flow charts where like you can break it
Okay.
down and it's like a tree and it shows all the different. Once I saw that, then I like looked at it and I'm like, okay, I get it. Because it feels tedious to have to go through like sometimes
Yeah,
like
yeah,
2 or 3 minutes of the review. And it's like I just got bored with it. I'm just like, I don't want to see these reviews again.
yeah.
like, sorry, continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no worries. So they so with the one ending, then you see Pearl, Colin's daughter, as a programmer, like in modern day, and her discussing how she's going to create uh
Yes.
recreate like the same game
Yeah.
that Stefan was working on, but this time as a Netflix interactive movie. And it
Right.
was like, oh, okay, well that's kind of cool. I really like I'm a sucker for anything meta, but I really enjoyed that. Like I was like, okay, yeah, this is kind of cool. And then the fact that like we people saying online like, oh, see, like that's a metaphor for how like the amount of the game itself is what's corrupting these people into doing these things and to making them think that they're
Mm-hmm.
being controlled by other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, well that is kind of cool. And it does work well with that one ending. But if you don't get that ending, then it's not there. So it's like, well, that is a really, really cool idea that a lot of people aren't going to see.
Right.
Um, which is again like part of my it was part of my worry going uh into Bandersnatch was like, well, like is this going to be something that like I'm going to feel obligated to like keep going back and trying all the different possibilities. I
Right.
like, I knew that there would be things out there that would be like, oh yeah, well this is how you can get to the different endings and whatever, but it was still, how many of those things do I want to discover for myself and, have caused myself? Uh,
Right.
because I mean, it is about you and your choices. Um, but yeah, it's
But it's not, because this is like this is where I get frustrated with it, and because they want you to have the feeling that you are having this individual experience with the show,
right.
and that you, because of the choices that you make, you get to have a different experience than somebody else, and that there's so many different variations of it. And I think what you're saying is like your fear is like in part like you don't want to get sucked into something that just never stops, right? Where it's just like
Yeah.
you keep going and going and going, and at the same time, like from a creative standpoint, then you look at it and you're like, so some people are going to get a bad version, then like some people are going
Right.
to get like, we're all going to walk away and it's like, I thought that was 4 out of 5 stars, I thought it was 5 out of 5, I thought it was 2 out of 5, because of the choices that we make, that we get to have a good or a bad episode, right?
Yeah.
Depending on that. But this is a legitimate criticism that I have, or at least a question, that if the purpose of this, of the content, is to show us that, to frustrate us, where you want to have control, but then they're ultimately denying it to you. And then you're like, and it's like, because that's what it's actually like in the real world in late capitalism. And then it's just like, okay, I get that, but I have basically, here, I'll cut to the chase. Wouldn't this be a far more satisfying story if it was a video game?
So it's interesting. There's a game called Heavy Rain. That
Yeah, I was thinking of
Yeah,
Heavy Rain. Yeah.
yeah. I own it. I've played it a few times. It's really really good, and it does give you a more immersive interactive experience where you feel more responsible for the things that happen in the story. Um, and it is, to me, probably a more satisfying experience. The It has, I forget how many. It has like, I don't know, 16 different endings or something like that. So it is a time sucker.
Right, right.
Especially for someone like me who's, like a completionist,
Yeah.
where I want to see every single ending. And then you have the creator of the game say, it's something that I think people should only play once. Whatever ending you got, that was your experience with it, and
Huh.
that was the story that you got. So it, it it's in that way, then it's better to have it be an interactive movie with more limited options from that perspective. But in terms of getting you more immersed in the story and more actively participating, then absolutely, like a video game is just far superior. It's
Yeah, and I mean, because that's ultimately what they're trying to do with Bandersnatch. It was written in such a way as to frustrate the viewer.
right.
It's written to do that. You're supposed to it, what a weird thing to do to say we want people to start up here with their level of excitement and then just get like the level of excitement keeps going down. Ignore the bell. We're going to go for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
The level of excitement like decreases and the level of frustration increases and you get this really weird like and that's how it's written and it's like they're like we're not going to satisfy you, we want you to
Right.
be frustrated by this because
Yeah.
we want you to experience what Stefan is experiencing and we want that to be this really like heavy like whoa kind of experience.
Right.
They're not trying to satisfy us, which is
No.
fine, but I'm saying once you get that then you're like okay, but as far as like, because you've got a background in, I forget exactly, I can never remember the full title of your original degree, cinema and media studies. Is this it?
Yeah, yeah, that's correct. With the
Oh,
focus in transmedia storytelling, screenwriting, and expanded cinema. So
see,
basically, this is perfect for me to study. I was
exactly.
thinking of my professors while I was watching
Right.
it.
Right. Like, because I
Yeah.
knew that like this would be like this is your wheelhouse. This is exactly what you have focused on in a
Mhm.
formal way for years of your life at a higher level institution, right?
Yeah.
Like, so so I'm saying if you look at it, then I was excited about. I was interested, maybe not excited, but really interested in what what does this approach to storytelling actually offer? And I mean,
Mhm.
I've looked at this like because I took a graduate course on uh, digital humanities, and one of the things that we looked at is interactive storytelling, and we've kind of looked at interactive storytelling from the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. So I've kind of got it like I mean, like that was like a week of the course or 2 weeks of the course that we looked at that. So it's not like I've spent years looking at this, but I've spent enough time looking at other versions of interactive storytelling. And there's so many. If this thing came out in the 1980s, I think it would have really blown people away. But when it's
Right.
coming out in late 2018, it's just like you're not doing anything with interactive storytelling that isn't done in so many better ways in so many other modes of storytelling because video games like something like what is the name of it, Heavy Rain, is that it, Heavy
Yeah.
Rain? Yeah,
Yeah.
so Heavy Rain certainly is doing that. But even like something like Metal Gear Solid going back to the 90s with
Yeah.
how much story there is within that and that you have different endings to the game but you have so much more agency as a player of that.
Yes.
or
Yeah.
or even if you get into I can never remember the like short form, the acronym for it, but like massive multiplayer role-playing games, MMRPG, is that it?
MMORPG. Yeah. Yeah.
Massive multiplayer online role-playing games. Yeah.
Yeah.
So something like World of Warcraft, it's like that is still storytelling, right? And it's digital storytelling,
Mhm.
but you have got so much agency in this that
Yeah.
you get to interact with other people and it's like you are creating a story that no writer is
Right.
creating. But then this is not This is so much more limited, and to me, it's like it's interesting because it's like written in such a way as to frustrate you, and then I'm like, well, that's good as a novelty for one story, but this doesn't actually, because I thought the point of discussion that we would have would be, are we going to start seeing this in other ways? Are we going to start seeing this in full-on movies? Are we going to start seeing this in, franchises outside of something like Black Mirror? And then watching this, I'm just like, no, they didn't really do anything interesting with it. Like,
Right.
they're
Yeah,
not,
I mean,
they're not opening this up.
yeah, it comes back to the discussion that we were having at the beginning of this recording, where we were saying like, uh, where it's just I completely lost my train of thought.
Okay, it happens.
But yeah, no, it's when I was studying during one presentation, one question that I kept posing to the class was, is this a video game? Like, what determines whether or not it is a video game? And that definitely applies to Bandersnatch. Like, does it count more as a film or more as a video game? And it's interesting because one of the key things that people would come back to is, well, is there an objective? And with Bandersnatch, there isn't really an objective too much. Like, there's an objective from the creator's standpoint, but not from our standpoint. We don't get to choose we get some level of, okay, what ending do I want to try to get? But that's not really the approach that you have when you first start up Bandersnatch. When you first start it up, you're just like, yeah, I'm along for the experience. And in that respect, then it's, I guess it's kind of like the longer you play, the more like a video game it becomes, but the less compelling it becomes.
Yeah.
In a weird sort of, because if it's becoming more game-like, then you want more agency, but you're getting less agency because you're just like, oh, I'm realizing how little control I have over this,
right,
in the grand scheme of things.
Right. Yeah. Which is how they want you to feel. And so that's why I'm just like,
the longer you experience it, the more frustrated you become.
Yeah.
So it's just like, well, yeah, it doesn't leave a good taste. It doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth. And again, going back to the beginning of our discussion, I don't think that we're going to be seeing much more of this, but I do think that we will be seeing some more like this. With again, it comes down to the fact that you need to write it in this form. So the content does need to match the form. I don't think that, they're going to try to implement this with, because there was a lot of, when the idea of an interactive Black Mirror episode was being talked about, because that's what people thought that it was going to be originally, then they were saying like, then people were, saying like, well, like how many of these are they going to do? Mm-hmm. It very much seems to me like they were only planning on doing this one.
Yep.
And and that's fine because it does work. This story works well in this form, and other stories won't.
Exactly.
As long as you approach it with that understanding that not every story needs to be interactive.
No.
Then I think that like I won't be too frustrated with seeing more of these, but it is still like, well, could it have been a video game instead? Or, well, could it have just been a regular episode? It's a decision that like the creators, that the writers have to make, and I hope that they make the right decision. With Bandersnatch, I think that they did make the right decision, but yeah,
but I
like
believe that was
there are
written specifically as the interactive
right.
episode. And so
Yeah.
it's such a strange thing because I feel like what they did is they opened up this mode of storytelling that the technology, the reason why to me it was so interesting before I watched it is because I went, wow, you can actually do this because it's Netflix, because it's a
Right.
streaming service, because we are watching on computer devices, then you do have the ability to do this in such a way that, like, I have actually watched, I've or played or interacted with a choose your own adventure, an actual choose your own adventure, like the actual copyrighted one of
Yeah.
it's for kids, but I have a DVD of it, and it's the
Yeah.
Abominable Snowman, and it's really fun. So I had like gone through it like 10 years ago. And so you can do it on DVD. The transitions are not like they're not very smooth. The way in this, the transitions are seamless.
Almost seamless. I had some issues with some
If
of the
you've
transitions.
I mean, like some of them do kind of go on a little long, but I'm saying the screen doesn't then flash or go to black and then while it's loading up a new version.
That's
Like
true. Yeah.
like that's actually like what's really surprising to me is
Yeah,
how good of a
and
job.
it's also not with a lot of video games where as soon as you push the button, then it skips to the end. It let that entire time frame go down
Yes.
before continuing the scene, which
Yeah.
was good.
Yes, because
Yeah.
from a technical perspective for filmmaking, that was very impressive,
Hmm.
right? The way
Yeah.
they did that. And so I was excited because I think, well, this is the kind of experience that you can have as a viewer that you cannot possibly do for obvious reasons in the movie theater and doesn't work on traditional television. And so it's like Netflix kind of wielding its technological uh, delivery, its mode to its own advantage, saying, we are
Hmm.
literally offering you something that no one else, aside from another streaming service, but that traditional TV cannot offer you,
Yeah.
that movies cannot offer you. And it's like, that's great because they are giving us stories like these really intense um, serial stories that go on for 10 to 13 hours per season where it's
Hmm.
like designed for binge watching. It's like
Right.
Netflix is giving us stories that network television just can't do because they know that people have a very hard time following it if you have to wait a full week. So I
Yeah.
was excited. So they kind of opened up the door to it, and then they closed it right behind them before the episode was even over. And then it's just
Yeah.
like, we're going to do something that only Netflix can do, and nobody else can do it after us because we just showed all the limitations of this. It's like, well,
Right.
that's a strange thing to do. And
It's true. Yeah.
but in the little bit of research that I did about this, apparently this is not a first for Netflix. This is a third time that they've done an interactive show.
Oh, interesting.
The other two though are on the kids section. And so I forget what they are, but like one of them was like a major thing like Shrek or I don't know, like something like that.
Hmm.
Like but specifically like a show for kids. And I think interactive stories like this, even if your transitions are not great, kids love that. But as an
Right.
adult, then I don't think that we love it that much. And I think that this kind of showed us that it's like, this is not great.
Yeah, yeah. It is interesting that you bring up like the kids section. From what I've heard, Netflix is planning on implementing a a repeat scene button for certain programming,
Huh.
and in kids television or films, that would actually be really good for the kids. It's like, oh, you get to the end of the song in a
Yep.
Disney movie,
Yeah.
you can just hit, yeah, I want to hear that song again, and then it goes right
Right.
back to the beginning. And that
Right.
again is something that you can't do with any other media. So
Yeah.
it's
I
really
mean
really
you
cool.
can do this with DVDs or Blu-rays.
Yeah, but not nearly
Not
as
as
well, not as
easily.
seamlessly.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so that was that was to me what I was really interested by. But then it's like, because of what the actual story is doing, it then shows you that if we give you too many options, that it ends up becoming a video game if there are too many options. So
Yeah.
if it works as a TV episode or a film, then kind of by necessity, in order, because it is something that is done by a writer. So the writer wants to get to a particular ending. It's like, because actual scripted TV shows or movies are doing something different than what a role-playing game is doing. And certainly if you're talking about like MMO RPG, like something like Second Life or World of Warcraft, where it's like, and you're saying like, is it a video game because does it have an objective or not? Well, the objective in those games is, really just, I want to just immerse myself in this whole other world.
Yeah.
Like, and there is no ending. It's just,
Right. Yeah.
I just want to interact with, friends that I've made through this, and, build up my character and build up, or even like The Sims. The Sims is, kind of, it can just be this endless simulation of, real life.
Yeah.
But so I'm saying video games can give you so much more freedom and agency. And then it's like, this is showing, well, you can't just take that video game approach and then put it into an interactive film or TV show, because the writer does want to get you somewhere, even if it's
Right.
a few different options.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. There were a number of video games released, I guess, late 80s, early 90s, that, had FMVs, full motion videos. So like live action segments that were actually filmed and put into the game, and then it basically was like you interacting with the story that was going on screen, and that does affect the ending. So it's interesting how this was labeled as a movie, whereas those were considered video games, and a lot of that is based on like what system or platform it's released on.
Yeah.
And if that's the only distinction that you have to make, then yeah, like there are certainly some stories where, for example, like Metal Gear Solid is it's a fantastic story that I think can be told in just about any medium. But there is something about the video game where you do have some agency over the character, even though they are guiding you by the hand to each and through at each and every step of the way. Versus other games where the story is about a guy who walks around and builds a house because that's what you decided to do, like in Minecraft.
Right. But like, because Metal Gear is such a good example, because this is where I started getting frustrated with Bandersnatch, when it says, like, when it gives you the option, like, it kind of forces you into killing your dad, where you don't really kind of get away around that. Even if you try to get around it, then it ultimately kind of brings you back there, I believe. And so then you're like, all right, kill him. And this is what I hate about RPGs, is it's just like you push the button attack, and then you just watch the character attack, and then you're like, I'm not doing anything. I pushed a button, and then I just watched this thing on screen. And so then I'm like, if I'm going to go through with this, I want to choose the way I do this. And then you've denied that to me. And so in Metal Gear, it's like they are leading you by the hand, but it's like, all right, so there's two guards in this particular, room, but then you get to choose exactly how you want to go about killing them, taking them out. You get to choose what weapon you're using. You get to choose which one you go after first. You get to choose how long you take to do it.
Or you could try to just,
sneak around
right by them.
Yeah, exactly. Then it's like, it gives you all these fun choices where you're really fully participating in this. And then instead with this one, it's just like kill dad. And then it's just like the exact same thing, clonk, with like the ashtray. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that was boring.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like if I wanted to have these options, if I wanted something that was a little bit more participatory, I would just go to a video game. And if I want, so it's like, I feel like it's not a very good video game if it's a video game. And I feel like it's not a very good movie if it's a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. It's a unique experience. Not that it's the only one of its kind, but it's, you know, rare at the very least.
It is.
It's an interesting experience to have, to be able to do that, to experience Bandersnatch is fun, and I would recommend it to people.
Yeah.
But it's not something where it's like, oh, this is the future of entertainment here. This is going to change everything. No. It's
and well, this is why I started the discussion by talking about my opinion towards Black Mirror in general, is that it's like most episodes have got a very interesting concept, but then it just keeps going and going and going. And it's like with this, it's like it's a really cool concept, but once you get beyond the concept, then there's not much left there, right? Like it's not something that I feel like would be very satisfying to go back and watch this again and again, because aside from that like 2-minute sequence where Colin goes off on Pac-Man, aside from that, then I'm like, if you were to honestly review this or assess this from a critical level of, how good of a film is this, and you take out the interactive part of it, let's say you just choose one of the options, is this an excellent film? No.
Quite simply, no.
Exactly. It's not. That's what I'm saying. It's that it's not an excellent movie and it's not an excellent video game. It is doing something interesting because it's occupying this space in between the two. And it shows, I'm such a huge supporter of Netflix. So I love that Netflix is brave enough to do this, to like, apparently it was very difficult for them, like from a technical standpoint, like they were having an issue like with like the cache part of their servers to be able to keep up with all the different people who are going to be watching, where it has to constantly seamlessly provide you with all the different alternatives, and that when you're loading it all on there, like it was from a technical standpoint, I go, wow, I love the fact that they invested in this, that they were brave enough to take this on. I love the fact that this again pushes network television and cable television to say, step up your game, because we are doing something better and different than what you're doing. And like I like all of those aspects of it. But then beyond that, then I say, but it like I say, I feel like it just kind of closes the door behind them, and I don't like that part.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. It's but yeah, it was really fun to have this be a thing. Actually, I'm really curious. How many different endings of killing Stefan's dad did you get?
How many different endings did I get?
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember because I didn't keep track, but like I saw a few different versions. Like there was like, it gave me the option of chop up body or bury him, right? So I tried both of those. I think chop up body just immediately didn't work.
Okay.
I think from what I remember, then the police came like almost right away. Or maybe it was bury him, and I don't know.
Bury him doesn't. From what I remember, bury him. Then Stefan is in the middle of dragging the body when Colin comes, and then And then they're talking upstairs, and you have the option of killing Colin or letting him go. And I let him go
Me
because I
too.
was like, well, it's Colin, who cares? Like, he doesn't care about anything.
Right.
But then he apparently turned as
Tells
a
the cop. I know.
yeah.
I thought that too. Then I'm like, the dude who is willing to jump over the balcony, like he's all suddenly about law and order. Like it
Yeah,
didn't even make sense. That's what I'm saying. I got frustrated because I'm like, as a movie, if that's what happened, like there's no consistency in that character. And it's like
yeah.
because the story's intentionally designed to frustrate you. And then I'm like, mission accomplished. Like but I feel like that's what
Yeah.
most Black Mirror does. Most Black Mirror episodes are supposed to like leave you with this horrible taste in your mouth. Like you're like humanity, technology, and I'm like, but if that's all you're doing, and there's not much beyond that, then I'm just like, I don't know. At times, I appreciate what it's doing, but then I'm just like, can't you do something? Can't you push it a little bit deeper than that?
Right.
Aside from you know, let's just be really grim and dark and
Yeah. No, I mean, I do think that there are some episodes of Black Mirror that do a really good job of that, but it's definitely not. It's far from the majority. uh,
right.
and yeah, I believe it's White Christmas. I highly recommend that episode.
That one's excellent. I really do like that one.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, getting back to the different endings with Chop Up Body, then it very much is, connecting Stefan to the guy, to Jerome, whatever, who wrote the book, who
Right.
chopped up his wife and all that.
Right.
Leaving you with the shot of seeing Stefan's dad's head
Oh, right.
just sitting
I
there in
remember.
the room.
Yes.
I was like,
Yes.
oh, okay. It was a very that might be one of my favorite endings just because of like, it's like, yeah, that feels about right. Like that's where the story probably should have gone based on everything else that had happened.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, apparently there's like a really good ending where I didn't see this one, but where Stefan ends up like going back in time uh in order to stop his mom from like having to wait for him or whatever as a 5-year-old.
Hmm.
So then, they'll get the earlier training and the train won't derail. So it's like, well, that's really cool if like it takes some effort to get to that ending or whatever. But from what I read, then you find out that regardless, they end up on the 8:45 train, which is the one that derails. So it's like, oh, so it really didn't matter. Like,
Because that's Black Mirror.
yeah,
Right?
that's really frustrating to me. I'm like, that's not the best ending.
No. I
Dad's
mean
head is the best ending.
the Dad's Head one is a pretty good ending. I mean like because another show that we haven't talked about like there's a couple other sci-fi slash horror anthology series. There's The Outer Limits, which kind of I guess mid 90s would be when that came on, or Tales from the Crypt from the I guess early 90s, the HBO show. Then those ones they're doing similar stuff as Black Mirror, except I feel like you get far more uh, I don't know, themes within those. Black
Yeah,
Mirror
it,
just
it,
seems
it
to
feels like it's got a better payoff in most of those episodes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing. Like I just that's where I kind of get with like most Black Mirror episodes. It's just like, okay, I got to spend 60 minutes to then just feel like, well, great. So you're just trying to bum me out, but like
Yeah,
but not
which is again why the dad's head ending is
yeah.
possibly the best one.
Yeah, no, I
in,
agree
in
with you.
terms
I
of
think
like
it is.
satisfaction, you're like, yep, that's how the story should have gone.
Right. Like it's kind of like I'm spoiling a movie here, but Secret Window, which is based off of the novella Secret Window, Secret Garden, or Secret Garden, Secret Window. I can't remember, but it's a Stephen King story, and then like Johnny Depp starred in it. Can I ruin it? for you?
Yeah, you can ruin it. It's fine. I feel like I've seen parts of it. I don't know when, but
Okay, but as best I remember, because it's been a while since I've seen the movie or read the book, but um, then like he kills his wife and then he buries her outside of the house, and then like he plants corn there, and then at the end, then he's like, eating the corn, looking out the window at like his beautiful corn stalks, and he's just so happy. It was kind of like the dad's head on the thing. It's like kind of like an Addams Family ending of like, this is so dark and grim, but it's like you're kind of smiling with him because you're like, yeah, that's so that's so dark and ironic, but like, oh boy, that really tastes sweet, and it's like, I don't know. There's a certain amount of like irony in there that's satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is missing from most endings in Bandersnatch. But I do agree with you. I like that point. The dad's head, because I did get that ending. And yeah, I probably did find that one the most satisfying.
Yeah. So there is one ending that is far more interactive, which is it's after I believe it's after you kill the dad, then I don't even know how I got to this ending, but then you're able to call Dr. Haynes, I think her name was.
Yeah.
And so
you
when you do,
you have to punch in
so
the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that I thought was like really, really cool. Just this idea of like, oh, how am I supposed to know the number? And then, like it's playing back different clips throughout. And it's like, okay, well, this is kind of fun. If I had known that I was supposed to pay attention to numbers throughout, it would have been more enjoyable.
Yes.
And then me actually having to remember those numbers. Yeah, so I feel like that's a cool idea and something that again is done far better in video games.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Is like when that scene came up, then I was thinking of Metal Gear Solid, and I was thinking like, and if they forced me to work harder to get the numbers, I think it would have been more enjoyable. But instead, they just kind of like give them to you. They're like 4, 1, 2, 1, right? And it's like on repeat. And it's like because they know that it would just be too difficult to force you to go back and try to find all of them.
Oh, it's impossible to go back at all in this, which is
I know
really,
you can't even go back. You don't know
frustrating.
how long each scene is, which is very like I really noticed that because I'm like, I do pay attention to how much time I have left within anything that you don't get at the movie theater, but you do have on Netflix, and then they took that away from me, and I'm like,
yeah.
But but I did think of Metal Gear Solid. Then I thought this was done so much better, and even the meta fiction in Metal Gear Solid, like when you're fighting Psycho Mantis, then it's like, oh, I can read your thoughts. Like I know what you're going to like do before you do it. And then you have to figure out, I need to remove it from my controller from this input and put it into the second input, right?
Yeah.
That it's like clever little things like that were done in the 90s.
And then, finding Meryl's codec frequency on the back of the game package.
Right.
That was awesome. Like
that was such a
so
great
cool. And that was also a way, my understanding is that was also a way to prevent piracy.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the game case, you can't figure it out and you're just stuck. Especially, late 90s where the internet was not very very good.
Right, exactly. And so like Metal Gear did such a good job with that, or even like forcing you to try to unravel this mystery within the game of like you have like your key card, and then you have to figure out like, oh, I have to then go back to this hot place to make it hot and this cold place to make it cold, and then I have to rush back to try to get it to work. It's just
and that again is where having more agency is far more effective. If you are stuck in Metal Gear Solid where you don't know what to do, you just keep calling people. And they help you eventually.
Right.
But it's not like it's not spoon feeding you. It's not saying,
No.
okay, well, this is what you have to do. Oh, you messed up. You have to do it this way next time. It's
Mhm.
not doing any of that. It's very much saying, like, okay, if you really want help, here's some tips. Here's some hints. And that is so much more satisfying uh, from a player's perspective, or
Yes. Yes.
whatever you want to call the person experiencing it. But yeah,
Right.
far more satisfying, because it feels like I did it. I figured it out. I
Yes.
came to that. Even though you got help, it's still I figured it out.
Exactly, exactly. And as Bandersnatch became more video game like, where you did have to input those numbers, right?
Mhm.
Then that's where I started getting more frustrated that it wasn't a video game. Then I'm just like,
Yeah.
and so that's what the whole thing is designed to do. I know that it is designed to frustrate you, and it's just like, but ultimately it just made me go, I don't want more interactive television. Instead, if anything, I feel like I want to play video games more now than before I watched this. Like
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it it made me want to do that more. And then it's like, or to just watch a movie, but did not make me want more of this.
Yeah.
So what a weird thing to do. Like
Yeah.
it feels kind of rude because they're for all we know, and I know this might seem like a strange way to go with this, but something like within the horror genre, when you had found footage that first came out with the Blair Witch Project in, I don't know, I think that was like 97, 99, somewhere around there, then it's like nobody had ever. I don't want to say nobody had ever done this before, because there might be some films that had done this, but it had never been this huge commercial hit the way it was, and people really bought into it. Like they really
Yeah.
believed that that this was an actual found footage film, that like these were
Mhm.
real people. I mean, like literally the actress who plays in it, then like she used her real name, and then
Mhm.
like in like her, and then they did an obituary in the newspaper for her, and like she had family members calling her own parents saying like, I'm so sorry for your loss, like the loss of your daughter, and like I know that she's in this film, and like I can't believe that it documents like her last few days, and they're like, she's fine. But it's like
Yeah.
when you looked at the Blair Witch Project, then it's like, all right, so you're taking this form of storytelling that nobody's really done before, and then it seems like, well, what else can you do with it? And it turns out there's a lot. There's a
Yeah.
lot of different things you can do with found footage. And there's been some really, really clever, innovative found footage movies. There's 95% of them are terrible and they're not good, but there are some that are excellent, that are doing different things than the Blair Witch Project.
Mhm.
But then it's like with this, I feel like by the end of Bandersnatch, it's just kind of like, here's what Netflix can do, and there's all this interactive storytelling, and then it's like, but our story itself is going to make it more difficult for somebody to do another version.
So, so I wonder if, because I'm trying to think of, like how to improve it for future stories that are told this way. I wonder if there would be a way to sort of have a menu that you're able to
Mm,
access where you can see different pathways, and you can only go back to ones that you have already seen. I don't know if it makes it too video game like or whatever for their liking, but the idea of, okay, well, I know that they said the phone number in that scene, so I'll go back to that scene and
yeah,
watch that one scene over
yeah.
again. That would be more interesting, more interactive, rather than, I mean, I don't know what were you watching it on your laptop?
Yeah.
Okay, see, I was watching it on my PS3, which just intensifies the video game feeling.
Right. I tried, and by the way, I tried watching it on my Nintendo Wii because I have that set up on my TV, and then it had this really cool message actually. Like they did a 1 minute video or so from characters within the show who say like your device is not compatible. You need to go to this, like literally because Nintendo Wii's too old and they won't let you. It was really cool. I'm like,
try that.
You do have to try it and try it soon because soon you won't be able to get Netflix on Nintendo Wii. Like you've only got like 2 more weeks. And then, but yeah, I'm like, I'm getting to see this thing that very few people get to see.
Very true. Yeah. But yeah, so the way that it works with like the PS3, the controller vibrates before a choice appears.
No, I didn't know that.
So that was good in the sense that it was, oh, okay, yeah, I should be, holding onto my controller now rather than just having it passively like off to the side on a table or something.
Right.
But it was also a little disappointing because then I always knew, oh, a choice is coming up.
Right.
And then I'm paying more attention to, okay, what am I going to have to choose between instead of focusing more on the story until the choice comes up.
Yes.
It was just like
I think that's a fair criticism. The menu option is interesting to me as well. I do agree with you that I think it would be a question for Netflix executives how much they would want it to feel more like a video game.
Right. Yeah.
But I think on the one hand, this is why I think that I'm a little frustrated that I feel like they kind of closed the door on this form of storytelling, is that even if it wasn't Black Mirror, if it wasn't a Black Mirror theme, then I think interactive storytelling on Netflix could be so much more interesting. And I'll give you 2 examples. One, if you did straight up horror, okay? And then it's like your goal is to survive, right? And then you just have multiple endings. And then you just see, can I survive? And it might only work, like you might only want to watch it like once and then you try different versions. But most people want to be most in horror movies, most people are shouting at characters all the time. Don't go upstairs, go out the back door. Hide, don't run. You know what I mean? And it's like horror is really set up for that, of like you're kind of screaming at characters to do something. And so but a lot of people who like horror are not necessarily, they're not going to want to, they're not all video gamers, right? They're not going to want to play like Resident Evil or, a whole bunch of other like horror video games.
Yeah.
Or, so that would be one version where I think that would work if you're just working in a different genre. And another one would be comedy. I think if you had a comedy film, like something like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like who, but like, something like starring like Jim Carrey or Will Ferrell or something like that, where it's like you want to see all the different hilarious scenes or hijinks that they could get into if you have a little bit of choice. And most people, because you're getting that satisfaction out of each scene, most people would want to explore almost every version of it, because it's like there's hidden jokes here and here and here and here and here. Instead of Black Mirror, you're just like, I get it. You want me to be frustrated and to feel like I don't actually have choices when it seems like I have choices.
That's very true. I would love to see a comedy like that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, do you want them to, run out to the street or go to the washroom? And it's like, oh, there are some good jokes in both of those situations.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. If you're looking at it going, like, what kind of joke do I want next? And like, what kind of scenario do I want to get this person into? And then you're like, that was amazing. Let's try the other one. Right.
Right.
And it's like, that would be so much fun.
Yeah.
And that's why.
Like, and that was part of my frustration with Bandersnatch when I got to, a certain ending. Then it was like, okay, well, yeah, you can see the credits now, or you can go back to that last choice. So I went back to the other choice. Then it's like, okay, you can go back. You can see the credits now, or you can go back and redo that choice. And it's like, but I already did that.
Right.
I want to go back further, and
if they gave you the menu. Yeah, if they gave you the menu just then.
Restart. Yes, yeah. Right. Once you've reached one ending.
Just then you just pull it up and then you just say, which choice do you want to go back to?
Yeah.
That would immediately make it better.
Of, like with the whole pyramid or tree diagram.
And they're like blacked out. The ones you haven't tried. See, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that would.
Yeah.
I don't see why they. I don't see what the. I cannot understand any reason why that. Why people wouldn't support that. Like why writers or executives or anybody. I think that's just a good idea.
I mean, they filmed however much content for this one thing, and most people are going to watch it once, probably be disappointed,
Yes. Yeah.
and then not want to watch it again. Like,
yeah,
I watched a few different endings, but I'm not going back to it because it is such a time sink. It's like, well, if I want to see another ending, then I have to restart from the beginning and then make all the right choices.
Right. And there's not much satisfaction from scene to scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like a comedy, there's satisfaction from scene to scene because it's like I mean, like
when he goes to the music store and you have to pick one album or the other, it's like it really does not matter. I don't care.
No.
And the fact that the music in the background doesn't sync, like doesn't flow through after the choice, that was one of those moments where I was talking about before, where it's not quite seamless.
Right.
But it was just like little things like that kind of irked me or whatever. But
yeah. And it's I just think like if you're looking at the kind of genres that where they reward repeat viewership, then comedy is that thing that I think more than any other genre, that's something that people just watch again and again and again. Like
True.
I mean, like, I don't know how many times I've seen, the first 10 seasons or so of The Simpsons, or how many times I've watched The Office, right? It's that, and I mean, and I continue to enjoy those things when I go back to them, like, again and again. Whereas with, like, a science fiction show that just makes you feel bad about humanity and our dependence on technology, it's just like, that doesn't reward a repeat viewing very, very early after you've watched it, very soon after. Like it doesn't. So that's why I'm kind of frustrated on the one hand that it's like, I think Black Mirror did a great job for a Black Mirror episode, but then it's like, so many other things could do a better job with this.
So here's my pitch.
Yeah.
Netflix should do Clue.
Oh, that'd be great.
A mystery, right?
A mystery. That'd be great. Investigate this person. Go to that room. Like, accuse that person with that weapon. Like, you know what I mean? And see, like, like, Mr. Plum, did you drop your knife? And then he's like, oh, right? But it's like, well, that didn't work. Mr. Plum, did you drop your candlestick? Gadzooks. yeah
That's my pitch. Just
so this is the thing, is like there's so many possibilities if you get outside of what they did, of like they just kind of like close it off and they're like, we're gonna have this bitterly disdainful view about capitalism and how it's like it presents the illusion of control, but it ultimately denies that to you. We're going to make you feel that way. Then it's just like, I can interact in the real world. I do get that feeling often. Thanks. You didn't show me anything I don't already know.
Yeah. From that perspective, it's good that they classified it as Black Mirror Bandersnatch rather than just releasing it as Bandersnatch.
Yeah, because you know what you're going to get into before you get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Are we done? Because I feel like I did my piece. I don't know if you have more to say.
I agree. I mean, obviously I could go on for a while about gamification and all that kind of stuff, but I have said the main things that I want to say, and we're sitting at about an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and I mean, I am interested in gamification of narratives and storytelling, and what possibilities get offered up by like a streaming service. But as far as like just focused on Bandersnatch, I think we've pretty well covered it.
Yeah.
Because we should save stuff for other podcasts, potentially.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. Heavy Rain actually is a pretty good example of Clue done in the Bandersnatch version, because it is like a missing child mystery. You play as a detective for one story, but you play as like different characters, and you're trying to figure out where the kid is and all that. And whether or not you find the kid, whether or not he's alive, whether or not characters survive is up to you. That again is more gameplay, more agency, and So there. It's not like this is going to replace video games. It's not going to replace films or television shows. It's an interesting, moderately new direction.
It is.
It's a possibility to be further explored.
But where the theme and the narrative itself gives you the illusion that it kind of is closed off, that it's just like, there, we showed you how this is frustrating and we're denying you the satisfaction. And it's just like, why would you deny me satisfaction? Like, I go to Netflix for fun.
Yeah.
Why do you just want me to feel frustrated and bad?
Your entertainment platform, right?
Right. It should be entertainment. It shouldn't just be like, frustration and guilt and shame, and it's like, I'm complicit in capitalism. Like, oh, Black Mirror, we get it. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so hopefully we do get other stuff beyond this, like, because as we were talking about, if you could just get outside of the genre, then this could be a fun little, I don't know, mode of storytelling that exists in between traditional movies and video games, and it's just situated kind of in between the two. That I feel like this, as much as this, it kind of brings up the suggestion that it's like, we're going to show how all the possibilities with this mode of storytelling, and then they're just like, never mind, we're giving you very few options. Then it's just like, okay, but there are other options, and this could be more enjoyable, and this could be more satisfying if you had a better worldview, if you were having more fun with it.
Yeah. So Black Mirror, you've said your piece. Please don't do another one.
Right. Yeah.
Anybody else? Go ahead, try it out.
Yeah. Like, any comedy, I would watch any comedy that is going to give me an interactive experience, even if it's like, a comedian that I don't normally like. I will watch it. I will try it out. And same thing with a horror story. I would like to see that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we're good then, right?
Yeah. This is fun times.
Yeah. All right. I don't know what's going to be next, but we'll figure out something for the next one.
Yeah. Maybe Batman. We talked about it before.
That could be good. All right, folks.
Great.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Ignore the bell, people. We're gonna keep going. We're still ignoring it. Don't worry. I don't know what that. I think that's the fire drill. All right. We're gonna go home. Yeah. All right. We're done.